Hello guys, thank you and welcome back to my series of the tool whisperer. This is my third video and it's all about making cool stuff. So in today's video I'm gonna show you how I make the wooden pens made from patterned wood and brass kits. So stay tuned and enjoy, and most importantly, help me grow my channel. You can like, comment, subscribe, and HBO, help a brother out by inviting your friends and share it widely. Alright, so let's jump right in. Alright guys, this is how I make the pen from using wood and brass pen kits. The wood blank is made from sliced pieces of stabilized wood, then glued together to form the pattern. So in today's video, we're gonna talk on how I begin doing it, the machines I use, and a disclaimer, I'll be changing quite a number of gloves because safety first. So this is the pen blank made from stabilized wood, and first of all, to avoid any future mistake, I always lay down the parts I arrange them the way they're supposed to be assembled so that I don't confuse them, because once you press them you can never get them out without damaging the pen. So I begin from the tubes, the ink holder, and the outside accessories. So here I've arranged them how they're supposed to be. Yeah, that's the pen blank and the tubes that go in first, and the ink and the engine and the housings. So first of all, I measure the length of the tubes, the brass tubes, to make sure which one is longer or they're the same size. Then I also measure the pen blank to see if the fittings will fit in correctly or they are longer than the pen blank. So you don't want them to be longer than the pen blank, because that means you've already failed, and you must have a margin of error just in case the end split, which they always do. You have something to play with to bring them back to size. So that's measuring, making sure everything is perfect. And then here I have a jig for cutting the exact size as the brass tubes. Adjust the size, make sure it fits correctly, and then I place it on my bandsaw, and then voila, we cut across the pen blank. So this jig really helps me because it gives me accurate and repetitive cuts each and every time. I can cut pens for the whole day, but they always come the same size that is needed. So it saves me time to measure and remeasure and remeasure. So this is my lathe, my mini lathe. I load up the chuck so that it can help me identify the center of the blank and drill a hole. Next, I tighten it because you don't want the chuck to fly off the lathe. It's very dangerous. Then I load the blank inside, and then I go back. I want to square both sides so that they can run through and they can give me flush. They'll be flush with the pen kit. So I go right across with a carbide tool, like nothing fancy, just across to make them flush with each other. Then I go back to the board. Then I find the center, because now we need to drill the exact center for the tubes. That's my little center finder, and there's a punch to make me secure the center very, very well. Right there. So after that, I align the blank, and then I run the tubes on a rough sandpaper to make it have a rough texture. This is very, very useful when you're putting glue, because it helps you not to have loose parts. Then here I'm measuring the bit, the drilling bit, to make sure it's the same size as the tubes. Then I lock it in the Jacob's jaw, load it back into the lathe, and then put the blank into the chuck, and then secure the tailstock. And then I come back. Here I had to change again another gloves that have LED lights to help me see small details instead of having a flashlight at hand. These gloves light my thumb and index finger on both hands, so when I point my finger at something, I can see it clearly. So thankfully I have those ones. They are really, really, really helpful. So I load in the chuck, and then I secure the Jacob's chuck, and then I run it. So that way, when I slide the Jacob's chuck, I get the blanks dead center. Then I continue drilling until I go through to the other side. Then I keep pulling it back, because I want to avoid the blank from burning and the chuck from getting stuck in the wood, because the drill and the shavings kind of create friction. So that's what I do. Then I come back to the original workbench, to the earlier workbench, and then I get the epoxy glue. These are slow settings. Some people use fast ones, but I prefer the slow setting again to another set of gloves. So these are two-part glue. When you mix A and B and then it's slow setting, that means it gives you room to set the brass into the pen blank. I put it on that metal rod especially for pen making, so that I don't touch it. And another thing about putting the brass into the wood blank is you only have one strike, because you cannot go back and forth. Because if you have glue inside the tube, that means you'll have a faulty pen, and you cannot be going back and forth. Once I finish, I load glue to the other blank, to the piece of brass, then slide it once, make sure it sits flush, rub it against the paper towel to remove excess glue, set the blank and the fitting correctly, the tube. Then I have to wait. Now I bring them to this machine. So basically the wood is longer than the brass fittings. I secure the little tool, let's call it a clamp, and then I run a trimming bit. This one makes sure I drill the wood to the exact same size as the brass. That one is very necessary, because it will help you when you're turning. The brass will be in contact with the spacers, and when you turn it, you know where the pen will begin and where it will end, like how to shape it. So I run it very, very extremely careful, because the moment you drill through the brass tube, you reduce the size of the pen, and that's the beginning of trouble, because once you try to set in the other settings, they will never fit, because they are cut to scale. So you kind of play with it until you get it sitting flush with a brass. Then I bring them back here, load the mandrel, load them in. This is the pen turning mandrel, so that means you run them across with 3 spacers, so it can help you to shape. Then I run it for a few seconds to see if it's running true, then lock it down, change to another pair of gloves, put the silicone mat because of the chippings, secure the tool rest, run it, then bring the roughing gouge and try to make it cylindrical. That's the first step, because the pen blank are always square. So my first step is to make sure they are cylindrical. So that way I have a way to manipulate and shape the blanks to the best of my liking. I always turn the blanks at top speed. That way, because they're small, that way I can get them down to size very, very, very fast. Anyway, at the back where I'm standing, at the back where I'm standing, I always put a fan. The reason is it's blowing towards the machine. That means the chippings do not come on my face. They just fly away from the machine for clear visibility, and and it's more safe because there's nothing coming in contact with my face. Anyway, I drop the roughing gouge, I go to the carbide tool, then I rough. Then here, now I'm achieving the desired shape, but it's very, very extremely rough. All right, I go back to the detailing. I go to another carbide tool, the one that is a little bit gentle, curves. It's a square one. The first one was a round one. This is a square carbide tool. Then I go across to details, get close to the spacers, make sure I don't touch them. And as you can see, my face always has a shield, because sometimes you never know if something leaves the machine and then flies across the room. I don't have to put my face in danger. So here I'm just touching it up to make it smooth, really quick passes with a square carbide tool. And the touch feels nice. Then I go back. Now here I'm sanding it. So I won't be boring people with a long video on how to sand, but basically I begin from 120 grit all the way to 5000, but from 120 to 800 I use dry sandpapers. That means I just sand, and then when I finish each grit I go across the wood to remove the lines, and then I put denatured alcohol to wipe all the dust, because you don't want to be sanding using the dust of the previous grit. So I go across over and over. This is an extremely tedious job right here. Sanding is the worst, but the quality of the pen entirely depends on the finishing. So here, more denatured alcohol and more sandpaper. Then more again, more. I'm about 400, 600. Then I run across to remove the scratches right there. So talking about my lathe, I have two, the bigger one and the smaller one. The bigger one is a pulley system where I have to adjust the pulleys to get different speeds, but the smaller ones I dial with a knob. So I use the smaller one for things like pens and the bigger one for other projects. Later I'll let you see what I use the bigger one for. Then here I'm running the sandpapers, and then now here I stop using the dry ones. Now I'm using water to go to finer grits next 1000, 1500, 2000. Keep on going over and over. And the good thing with this one, it doesn't produce dust. So at this point I remove my face mask and breathe, but I keep going. I dip it a little bit in water, not the pen. You have to be patient right here because now you are almost at the finish line. Yeah, so I always wear the things in my hands. I usually see them in the Chinese kitchens. So they help me protect my hands from chippings, because chippings from the lathe, they are extremely painful when they hit your skin. And this thing goes up to the elbow. As you can see now, this is sanding, it becomes clear as glass. Then I jump right to the big machine, not like biggest, but slightly bigger, load the chuck. And I begin to assemble the polishing wheels. These are made from cloth, 3, rough, medium, and super soft. I load them on the bigger lathe, lock them in with a tailstock, secure them properly, they don't fly off the lathe, run them, see they're true. And then I go back to the smaller lathe, loosen the tailstock, get out the blanks, and then I go back to the big lathe. Again, change the gloves to rubber reinforced ones. Then I begin putting wax, and then I run them through the wheels to give them the shiny, perfect texture. So many people have many different ways of finishing the pen, but I prefer this one because it's straightforward. It has a very easy learning curve, and I just like to use it because you don't have to wait as the others, like you have to wait or you have a chance of error. This one is straightforward. So I usually get these wheels from a Chinese company, and then they also supply the polishing wax, which is awesome. So it helps me achieve super glossy finishes on my projects. So here on the second wheel, getting it polished. To the third one. Now the third one is just like just giving it a shine, but it has already been polished and sealed with the other 2 wheels. Now it's beginning to shine, getting better. Now they're great. And then now I go back to the bench again, get out another tool. This is a pressing tool, I think. This is for fittings. Like, it helps you press in the fittings without splitting the job that you have really worked hard to achieve. Right there, I'm pressing the bottom first, and then I dab the top with a little CA to secure it forever. And then I press, looks beautiful, looks perfect. Press again, just for the sake, and then I drive in the engine, press it flush, load in the ink, the cartridge, check, and then you again adjust, because with the engine, if you press it in, way in, and then you find it cannot retract properly, that means game over. Right there, the pen is done, it can write, so shiny. And yeah, guys, that's how I make pens. You can see it takes some time to make them, but it's so much fun. It's one of the things that I love the most, and it helps me relax. Like, once you're doing this, time flies. You just forget the world. You just be you. There's another wood that I use to, like a pen case. For this one, we'll make it in the videos in the future. Thank you so much.